What is good, everybody? Juliana Page here, and this is actually Momentum Monday. If you don't know about Momentum Monday, you need to go follow a girl over on Instagram at Miss Juliana Page. It's something that I do every week to help folks get started on the right foot so that they can keep promises with themselves, so they can build really good momentum, and so that momentum can then carry them through the week so that they can have some flow to their week versus just pushing. Now, what's momentum? Literally one day at a time, one moment at a time. It's how you think, it's how you start feeling and putting energy in motion, and then it's how you act because of that. So basically, it's checking yourself before you wreck yourself, but it's preparing yourself so that you can show up and have an awesome day and do that on repeat, okay? So today I actually wanted to talk about life group, but you can see in the title that I say before you get into that relationship or before you pursue that relationship. So I'll build it up, but you got to stick around to know what I'm building. All right, so life group. What the heck is a life group, Juliana? Great question, because I actually would wonder the same thing. I'd be like, is that one of those weird churchy group things, you know? It's not. Okay, so here's what's up. Life group is kind of like what it sounds like. All right. Life group is literally a group that gathers, total strangers, probably initially anyway, gathers to bring life to one another. Literally. So there's not complaining, there's not venting, there's not sharing grievances. It's not just like airing out all of your stuff. It's coming together with the intention to bring life to one another, because we all could use some life. Okay. So it's coming with the intention to contribute, to add value, to bless other people in community. Cool. Also, it's a group that gathers to do life together, because some people might be in a season of celebration and victory. Some people might be in the hardest, most difficult, most challenging season of their life. Somebody might be about to step into that kind of season. Somebody might be in a really unknown and difficult in its own way season, where there could be a lot of distractions, a lot of temptations, a lot of wanting to return or go around the mountain several more times. So it is really important to have community around you, because it's super difficult to build community when you need community. So it's really important to be building community all of the time. Now, the life part is, there's only, in my opinion, one source that brings life. Okay. And it's who the sun sets free is free indeed. So this is all about spirit-led life. We don't know the answers in our human self. We're not strong enough in our human strength to navigate some of what life throws at us. And so we need spirit-led leaders to come together and support one another. So that's what it's about. It's a totally free group. We happen to meet Mondays at 8 p.m. Central. We have a private Facebook group. So that's of interest to you. You can make sure to go to julianapage.com and fill out a contact form, and I'll make sure to get that information to you. But why do I bring up life group? I bring up life group because we covered a topic last week, and it was about relationship. Because believe it or not, this girl had no clue that you could have a relationship with God. I didn't know that I could hear God for myself. I didn't know that I could really distinguish God's voice from other voices in my life. That I could be led by God's voice and use a lot of wisdom and discernment that saves you a lot of time and energy. I didn't know a lot of things, right? And that's not good, because all of that the enemy could use against you, right? So relationship was where I ultimately had to start. A relationship is what ultimately broke my heart and led me to God. Like for real, right? Not just like a bad relationship, or that relationship that, sorry to see it go. Like we've had those, but like really a very traumatizing relationship is what set me on the path to know God for myself. But I had to start with relationship. I had to start there, because this very profound thought came to me. And this was a thought. If I don't know the author and creator of love, how am I going to actually love somebody or be able to distinguish if what I'm receiving is actually of that same spirit? Interesting. Right? Then you could also say, what have I been giving in relationships? What have I been enabling in relationships? What have I been allowing in relationships? What have I been tolerating? What have I been contributing? Right? Like when you actually assess that, it's very interesting because was it unconditional? Was it conditional? Did you feel good when? Right? Was all of your power in somebody else's hands? Like, it's important to look at these questions. So the interesting thing, when I asked, if I don't know the author and creator of love, how am I going to know love from myself? The answer is I wouldn't. It's not an answer that you want to hear, but that's true. So then I could also say the relationships that I had weren't really loving, right? On both sides, okay? So here's the thing. I had to start with relationship, but I was like, how am I going to know God for myself? And how am I going to have a relationship with God? What does this even look like? Like, that felt so foreign to me. And I wasn't about religious practices and principles and like all of this stuff and just having structure and being a good human. Wasn't like that. I wanted to have a relationship with God and know God for myself, but what the heck? Like, where do you even start, right? So this is the exercise, and we did this in a life group, and it was profound. So we literally just wrote down and had everybody kind of like popcorn qualities of relationship. So reliable, loyal, inspiring, flexible, loving, respectful, honorable, trustworthy, high emotional intelligence, open, passionate, really great communicator, humorous, consistent, faithful, just dropped all these characteristics out, right? Then we challenged everyone that shared, and we asked, how have you known God to show up as reliable in your life? How have you known and experienced God to show up as loyal, as faithful, as consistent, as open, as loving, as respectful, right? And when you think about yourself and how you contribute to God, this is where like a really crazy heart change starts happening, because you start to recognize that, one, you might not have ever been in pursuit of God. And if you're not being pursued in relationship, it really is not as fun, right? Not fun. You might not have even been open to God, which it really sucks when somebody is not open to you in a relationship. You might not have been loyal to God, and we all know what it feels like when somebody is not loyal to us, right? You might not have been in constant communication. We know how relationships fail just because of communication, right? So, and even having a sense of humor, like, I know God to have a sense of humor, right? So all of these qualities help you actually recognize that you do on some level know God. You have in many ways experienced God. You just might not have owned that or identified with that. Now, taking that deeper though, because it's way deeper than that, what does God actually value? When we're in a relationship, we consider, what does God value? What does this other person value? When we can really recognize what they value, we can make sure that we serve in that way. You know, you read those books about the 5 love languages. We would read something like that so that we could learn what this person values, or how they're shaped, or how they're molded in some ways, so that we can relate with them with wisdom, right? So the same thing, what does God value? Well, I probably needed to get into his word and know for myself what he values, right? Do a study on that. Or discernment, right? How can I really know God's voice for myself among all the other voices, and even my own voice? Like, how can I know God's voice for myself? For me personally, I had to tune out a lot of voices. Stop watching TV, stop watching the news, stop listening to the radio, stop inviting all of this feedback into your life, and get quiet. Consecrate yourself. Like, literally create time just to be still and listen. And listen, right? Because God has a subtle, still small voice. It's subtle. It's not like loud megaphone getting your attention, right? So if we go through life with like headphones on all the time and God's trying to talk to us, we will never hear God. And that's what a lot of us do, right? And then fruit of the Spirit. What does God's character look like expressed through a human? We'll know them by their fruit, right? That's what God says. You'll know a son of God by their fruit. So how do we really recognize these folks? By the fruit. What is the fruit of the Spirit? Doing a study on that. So why do I share this? I share this because a life group is a really great way to get around people that have a spiritual walk with God. That's really important, especially if you don't know where to start. getting involved in a life group or community in some kind of way that is spirit-led is really, really important. Secondly, you've also, which this should probably be first, you also have to develop your own one-on-one relationship with God. That always has to be first. Even if you're in community, if you're serving, whatever you're doing, you always have to be able to have that first, all right? And then lastly, it's really important to start understanding what God values, or how to activate discernment, or how to develop the fruit of the Spirit, or even recognize what fruit of the Spirit God is developing in you in this season, because God is a potter and we want to be pliable. We want to be moldable in his hands, right? But we're not seeking him diligently, when we're not delighting in him, when we're not knowing him for ourselves, when we're not invested in relationship, or only wanting that relationship for what God can do for us. We just want to be blessed, but we have no concern what God values at all. Like, that's not it. We're not moldable and pliable in his hands. And how can he use us? And it's not just to be used of service by God. Being in relationship with God is the best provision and protection and gift that you could have in this lifetime. For real, right? But it's also what allows you to thrive in every season. And it's also what helps you invest wisely, right? It's also what informs healthy relationships versus not healthy relationships. It's what keeps you in perfect peace when life is chaotic, right? It really, really establishes you on a whole nother level. So it's really important to recognize, how does God want to mold and shape me? How does he want to use my testimony? How does he want to relate with me in this season? What does this look like, right? And as you do that, it's so interesting, because testimonies will come, connections will happen. You'll start to see God move in ways that you've never seen or experienced before. And it will radically, radically set your faith on fire. And you will just definitely be a magnet to activate other people in that as well. So my encouragement on today is to plug into your power source, to know God for yourself, and to let that shape your identity and your purpose and your legacy, right? Because a lot of times we want our way, and we want everything to line up with how we think it should, right? But there's a scripture, it's James 1:2-4, that talks about any time that we're being tested, it really reveals what's in us. It reveals our heart. It reveals our emotions. It reveals our feelings. It reveals what we're thinking about all the time. And a lot of what happens in life is just testing us. But if we don't have this spiritual core and foundation and process, right, and relationship, then how can we navigate life on a spiritual level? And right, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. So we're in the world, but we're not of the world. So you really have to recognize where you're from, who you're from, how you're wired, so that you can show up and so that you can be that, right? So you can be in the world, but not of the world, so that you can operate from a very different government, if you will. Okay? So my encouragement is that you know God for yourself, that you get in community with people that are pursuing God, not perfection and not their own agenda, and that you keep a list of all the ways that God is showing up as this for you, because that will really increase your faith. Keep a list of all the ways that God is showing up for you relative to relationship, because he's constantly going to be showing up to you in different ways. And then also keep a list of all the testimonies, because that will keep you firmly rooted and planted when it's easy to get distracted, when it's tempting to get off the path and just do what you want. All right. So I hope this message blessed you. If you want more resources about this, there's a few books that I've written. They're all under the main heading, God's Vibes Matter. They're great tools and resources. You can do a book study with it. You can have your own devotional practice, whatever you need. Develop your own authority. Go check out julianapage.com. And until next time, guys, stay blessed. Bye.